the start of a new week, and that means it's time for our latest edition of the Daily Stand Up Podcast. And today I wanted to talk about how we build products and more specifically product discovery. So, one of the things that I realized is sometimes we build exactly what the customers think they want, but it's not what they need. And other times we build exactly what the customers ask for, but it's not what we should be building. And sometimes, or vice versa, sometimes we build exactly what we think the customers want and they don't want it at all. So I don't care what some random customer tells you. You're going to build what I tell you to build, is often what we hear from leadership, right? Especially from product owners. Sometimes you're a scrappy, small team who with big hopes and big aspirations, and you're trying to get in there and get the job done. And all you have to do is maintain and get the work done and remain on a radar and create those MVPs and get everything out that's being asked of you, and you'll be in good shape. The problem is once you become successful in that light, it kind of draws attention to you and to the product owner and to the leaders who tasked you with like major new initiatives. So if you run a playbook of some kind to help you with continuous delivery or continuous discovery, your Bafata will interview users, they'll interview stakeholders, they'll create prototypes, they'll meet with user experience and design workflows. And I think that you should, over time, identify a workflow that's going to be balanced and work better than others that are there. And you can tell because you're not just doing the same thing over and over again in a different way, but you actually have different ideas that are helping you craft how the product or service is going to work. At this, the leader, sometimes they get frustrated because they want the answers and they want them yesterday and they want the product sooner rather than later. But sometimes you get that pushback, right? And the pushback is often my way or the highway, right? And when a leader gets in there and just says, I know who the ideal customer profile is, I know who our targeted user is, and they trash your designs, they trash the things you spent hours trying to create and build to make sure that you are on the right path, and they present what they feel is their own set of pages, their own design, or their own thing that they want from you. And oftentimes this leaves you at little choice but to do exactly what the leader says. But the truth is, numbers don't lie. You could tell something's off. You could feel like your conversations aren't making it back to where they need to be and that your conversions just aren't there, that people aren't switching to your product. They're not switching back. They're not engaging. And you'll hear excuses like, this is how it's done most of the time. The leader has a great track record of string of successes that led to their lofty role within the organization. So why can't you just get on board? And I think part of it is we need to understand the difference between discovered versus dictated. So the difference is how you arrive at the selection of the arrangement of what you're trying to do, right? So no one person knows all the answers. There, I said it. There's just not one person. It almost has to be a collective of people, or brain trust of people, where you're getting input from the business side of the house who keeps their thumb on the pulse of the consumer, the strategy side of the house that makes sure that we're building things that are going to yield the best return on investment for the company's long-term future, and the technical side of the house to make sure that we have the technical needs met and that we're building a product or service that we can build upon into the future. So sometimes this means that we have to follow the vanilla ice approach. We have to stop, collaborate, and listen. No one ever knows everything up front. It's impossible. Even in continuous discovery, we recognize that people don't know everything up front. And instead of going with that assumption, with humility and curiosity about the end user's needs, we involve them and the stakeholders in the process of discovery. So when you collaborate with your customers up front and go through a discovery phase, it's going to make it much easier for you to build something that everyone's going to be happy about, that everyone will use. You'll have what I call co-creator success. So it's important for you to understand that there are risks that can undermine people every single time, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible. So some of the things you have to think about, that are risks are value. Are the customers going to see the value you're trying to provide? Usability. Can the users or end users find exactly what they're looking for? Do they know? Have they figured out how to use your product or service? Feasibility. Can we build this feature with this team, this tech stack, this time, with the time we have available? Are we on track? What can we do? And of course, business viability. Does the feature or thing that we're building, does it work for all aspects of the business? Is it something that we can carry forward and yield positive results? All of those are important questions. So it's one of those things that without getting those risks out of the way ahead of time, it makes it difficult for you to feasibly justify building a product or service in a traditional or even in an agile way. It slows you down. It slows you down and puts you into the analysis paralysis, if you will, right? And part of this has to do with the challenge of a traditional leadership model. So lots of legacy enterprises are largely dominated by stakeholder-driven management cultures where teams are given a set of features that they need to build in a specific amount of time by more senior business leaders. And despite being far removed from the actual end users who are using the product, these leaders just, for years, ever since the company was a startup, see it as their right, privilege, and responsibility to tell the people who are building the product or service exactly what should be built. And it's the team's responsibility to do as you're told, do as I say. That leads to an interesting dilemma, right? Because you should listen to what your leaders are saying. After all, they became successful for a reason, but part of the reason is because they listened to their team, right? So there is a unique value that the leaders bring to the table, though. Experienced business people have a wealth of crucial business and strategic context. But in a more classic model, the full value of what they have or what they have to offer isn't used effectively. While they're busy telling others what to do, they miss the opportunity to share the important leadership priorities and strategic concept that their people need in order for them to better create supporting choices for all the things that are about to happen. So at the same time, when teams passively accept detailed instructions, they burn off their own creativity and initiative and achieve a form of learned helplessness. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. This may be appropriate in some situations where the team honestly doesn't know what to do or there's multiple options and neither one's a bad idea. But in complex learning work environments that most businesses need to succeed, the biggest tragedy is that you lose out on innovation and engagement that you could have gotten from everyone across the team if you'd only engaged everyone across the team, right? So, is it any surprise that these outdated management models so rarely achieve the goals that are set for them? Is there something better we could be doing instead? Well, there's continuous discovery at the center, right? And this is where we need to kind of put it. So there are three things we could do to turn the tide. The first is start from strategy. So one of the biggest problems with the conventional model is that people are told what to do without any understanding of why they're being told to do it. So this is visionary, but no strategy. This is where strategy is so crucial. Without getting all the elements of strategy, you need to understand it. It's a problem-solving framework. It's a set of choices centered around where we play and how we win. Its goal is to influence that which is out of control, like client behavior. And in ways that will create success for clients as well as for the business, we focus on both sets of acceptance criteria. Yes. So you need to play to win. It's a hard strategy, but when I talk about winning, WIN, I'm talking about understanding the wants, interests, and needs of your targeted consumer. So for me, winning is something different, right? And if you can answer all the question words, then you have the upper hand when it comes to winning. But I think the big piece that seals the deal for starting from strategy is understanding that choices need to be made, right? You need to focus on making choices, making decisions. Your strategy will have a chance of success as long as you account for fundamentals in an integrated way. Make sure your choices work together and have a clear understanding of how to make them happen. Number two is discover continually. So with our strategic context set, we can now focus our attention on choices and continue delivery and stay ahead of any remaining risks that are out there that was a one-time expense, right? So it's one of these things where if you have a starting point, if you start with a problem or an opportunity to solve for a specific person or group and work backwards from that, you can work towards achieving an outcome. a change in customer behavior. That means success for both for them and for you as a business. So rather than starting with a random feature that you decided to build when a least is known, start with something that makes sense, that's foundational, that contributes to product discovery. So speak with the customers, identify your strategic choices, map the opportunity space, and test your assumptions. Those are all pieces that are key components of discovery. Um, and once you get that, create solution diagrams of some kind, whether it's a solution tree, whatever it might be, a workflow diagram, something that's going to show a day in the life of your customer walking through your product or service solution so that you can make better choices and better understand customer outcomes and customer opportunities, so you can leverage those so that you can continue to create the high quality products or services that they're looking for, right? Another big piece of this is opportunity, mapping opportunity to the space that you have. So it's not something that's just instant. You want to make sure that if you have an opportunity that you're saying, okay, this is how much space we have, how much of this opportunity can we complete, and making sure that you're mapping something that's feature rich, but that makes sense to the opportunity. Then your last thing is to lead differently and empower. So there's so many opportunities that we have where we need to adjust the way that we invest, where we need to empower people and uplift people and look at the commands and the way that we approach work. So the most appropriate model for leading software to stay ahead of the risks comes not from business, but from the military of all places. It was L. David Marquette who wrote a book called Turn the Ship Around, or General Stanley McChrystal's Team of Teams. These both focus on strategic intent. And two of the things they bring up is the leader can either command their team in detail, build me a bridge made of concrete and wood, 10 meters wide, 50 meters long, 4 meters above the water, with the strength to hold at least 4,000 kilos. Or they could say, team, help me figure out the best way for us to get across this river. Right? And neither one of those should be bad things. They should both be positive and they should both be uplifting. Okay. Let's go with empowering with direction. So as teams are discovering insights during their continued discovery cycle, they're going to gain insights. They're going to learn things. And it's important to empower the teams to make decisions based on what they learn. Sometimes that means a pivot, and that's okay as long as they have the buy-in of the product owner. But the team should be the one making these discoveries, as they go. And I'm not saying you leave everything until it's the team's turn, but the team should feel empowered that it's okay for them to make discovery. Yes? And then last but not least, you have to use the advantages of making sure teams have the advantage of being closest to the customers in many cases. We need to leverage that. Stakeholders have user experience and necessary strategic context. We need to use that. You need to start from strategy, discover continuously with customers, and lead differently and empower people to make good choices. If you could do those three things, then it doesn't matter how cliche whatever we're trying to do is. If we can lead with those positive changes, we're going to have better product ownership, and it's going to help us because we focus on discovery more. That's going to do it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have a topic you want us to discuss, learn more at AgileDad.com. We'd love to hear from you. As always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.